Last week we finished reading Canto 2 of the poem. And we saw that Cantos 1 and 2 are like a kind of introduction to the rest of the poem. We were introduced to Savitri. Savitri waking up on the day when Shraddhavan must die, and remembering everything in her life that has led up to this day. Actually, the whole poem, the whole action of the poem takes place on this day when Shraddhavan must die. It starts with the dawn of that day, and it closes with the night of that day, and how by the end everything has changed. The beginning is rather a dark one, but in the last lines of Canto 2, Aurobindo told us that Savitri will be successful in her mission. A flaming warrior from the eternal peaks, empowered to force the door denied and closed, smote from death's visage its dumb absolute, and burst the bounds of consciousness and time. So now Aurobindo is going to begin a long flashback. He's going to tell us how Savitri came to be born and the story of her life and of her meeting with Shraddhavan. So this flashback, which begins on page 22, continues up to page 561. Big flashback. And what we are going to read now is how Savitri came to be born. This book is called The Yoga of the King, and there are two cantos with that title. This first one has the title, The Yoga of the Soul's Release. And this king who's mentioned in the title here is the human being, the very special human being, who will become Savitri's father. She is born because of him, his aspiration, and his tapasya. So I'll read the first 50 lines, and then we'll go back to the beginning and look carefully at each sentence. A world's desire compelled her mortal birth. One in the front of the immemorial quest, protagonist of the mysterious play in which the unknown pursues himself through forms and limits his eternity by the hours, and the blind void struggles to live and see. A thinker and toiler in the ideal's air, brought down to earth's dumb need her radiant power. His was a spirit that stooped from larger spheres into our province of ephemeral sight, a colonist from immortality, a pointing beam on earth's uncertain roads. His birth held up a symbol and a sign. His human self, like a translucent cloak, covered the all-wise who leads the unseeing world. Affiliated to cosmic space and time, and paying here God's debt to earth and man, a greater sonship was his divine right. Although consenting to mortal ignorance, his knowledge shared the light ineffable, a strength of the original permanence, entangled in the moment and its flow. He kept the vision of the vasts behind. A power was in him from the unknowable. An archivist of the symbols of the beyond. A treasurer of superhuman dreams. He bore the stamp of mighty memories and shed their grandiose ray on human life. His days were a long growth to the supreme, a skyward being nourishing its roots on sustenance from occult spiritual founts, climbed through white rays to meet an unseen sun. His soul lived as eternity's delegate. His mind was like a fire assailing heaven, his will a hunter in the trails of light. An ocean impulse lifted every breath. Each action left the footprints of a god. Each moment was a beat of puissant wings. The little plot of our mortality, touched by this tenant from the heights, became a playground of the living infinite. This bodily appearance is not all. The form deceives. The person is a mask. Hid deep in man, celestial powers can dwell. His fragile ship conveys through the sea of years an incognito of the imperishable. A spirit that is a flame of God abides, a fiery portion of the wonderful, artist of his own beauty and delight, immortal in our mortal poverty. You will begin.
A world's desire compelled her mortal birth, one in front of the immemorial quest, protagonist of the mysterious play in which the unknown pursues himself through forms and limits his eternity by the hours. and the blind world struggles to live and see. A singer and toiler in the ideal's air, flow down to earth, young meet the radiant power.
Yes. A world's desire compelled her mortal birth. This refers to Savitri. Why has she been born? She's been born because the world needed her. There's a longing and an aspiration for her birth. And that desire of the world, that need of the world, is represented by one individual, one person. And he's a person who's in the front, he's leading the immemorial quest. A quest is looking for something, seeking for something. And it's as if the whole world is moving forward because it's seeking for something. And he is one individual who was right at the front, a leader of that immemorial quest. That quest which has been going on so long that nobody can remember when it began. Immemorial, time that can't be remembered. That one is also a protagonist. A protagonist is the main actor in a story or a drama or an action. So he is the main actor, or one of the main actors, in this mysterious play. And then Aurobindo describes this play in which the unknown, with a capital U, that one, that origin that we do not know, it's as if he is playing hide and seek with himself. He pursues himself through forms. He has made all these forms in the universe, and he's inhabiting all these forms. He's inhabiting each one of us. And in each one of us, he is looking for himself, to rediscover himself in a new way, in his multiplicity, in his manyness, not only in his oneness. So in this play, the unknown limits his eternity. In his own being and nature, he is one and eternal and infinite. But when he enters into the universe, into the cosmos, into this manifestation, he limits his eternity. He accepts to exist in the unfolding of time in us. And in this play of his, the amazing thing that's happening is that the blind void, the unconscious emptiness, is struggling to become alive and to become conscious, to live and see. This is a wonderful description of what evolution is. The blind void, the emptiness, the unconsciousness is becoming alive, becoming conscious. So it's this one person who has brought down to the dumb need of earth. Earth could not express her need herself. So he is expressing this need of the earth, and we shall read how he does it. He succeeds in bringing down from the higher levels of consciousness Savitri to be born as a radiant power here on earth. And now Aurobindo describes that one a bit. Slava, would you read, please?
Yes. He is called a spirit that stoops from leisure spheres into our rovines of ephemeral size, a colonist from immortality, a pointing beam on Earth's uncertain roads. His girls have up a symbol and a sign. His human self, like a translucent cloth, covering the whole world who lives in unseen world.
Yes. So this one, this individual, he's born as a human being, he lives as a human being, but his spirit has come down from much vaster spheres, realms of existence, into our little province here, our province of ephemeral sight. Ephemeral means something that passes very quickly, that doesn't last long. There are little insects which are called ephemerids. They are born and they die in a single day. They are quickly gone. So our lives last a bit longer than that usually, but still, compared with infinity and eternity, our power of seeing, our vision, our life is ephemeral. We live on earth, and this is a province, a small, apparently unimportant place. It's not the capital city of the universe. But he has come here into this province of ephemeral sight. And he's come here as a colonist. A colonist is somebody who goes to a part of the world where there are not many people, where there's perhaps not much civilization, and establishes a city there. It's the way that the ancient Greek civilization spread around the Mediterranean. Every few years, when they felt that their population was getting big enough, they would choose the best and the brightest young people of the upcoming generation. And they would give them a ship and some supplies and send them off to explore the unknown and find a suitable place to start a new city, to colonize and make a fresh start. Of course, in our modern times, this word has taken on a different connotation. We think of colonists as people who come from Europe mainly and colonize places where in fact they already have their own civilization, and the colonization becomes a kind of exploitation. But Aurobindo is not speaking about that. He's speaking about how this great being from the immortal realms has come on earth, and he's going to establish some base for the rule of the spirit on earth. So the fact that he is born, Aurobindo says, is like a pointing beam, like a lighthouse or something, a signal that shows the way. It shows the way on earth's uncertain roads. When we are here in the ignorance, we don't really know where we are going. But if we see some great individual or somebody who expresses some great idea, then that gives us something to follow in our way, in our lives. So King Aswapati was like that. And the fact that he was born, his very birth of a spirit from higher realms being born here on earth, this here he becomes a signal, a symbol and a sign or a signal pointing the way. He looks like a human being. Of course, he's a king, he's a special human being. But his human self is like a cloak, a covering. But it's translucent. It lets the light shine through it. So it doesn't cover him up completely. His light is able to shine through that human form, the light of his spirit. And that translucent cloak, which is his human self, is actually covering the all-wise, an aspect of the divine, of the supreme, the all-wise who is leading this unseeing world to its fulfillment. Here we are wandering around on earth's uncertain roads, but somebody is leading us, even if we don't know it. And so King Aswapati embodies that leader who is showing humanity the way forward.
We have a question about the colonist from immortality. Socrates and Platon is a colonist from immortality?
To some extent, I suppose, all these great teachers who have come in their own way. Yes. You might like to have a look in Mother's comments. There's in our library here, we have Mother's book about Savitri, and volume 3 covers this canto, and what she says there about Aswapati is very, very interesting. You can have a look at that.
But Aurobindo wrote many things about Platon.
Yes. Please read.
Affiliated to cosmic space and time, and paying here God's debt to earth and man. The greater sonship was his divine right. Although consenting to mortal ignorance, his knowledge shared the light ineffable.
Thank you. So this one, King Aswapati, is affiliated to space and time. This is a word we sometimes use in business, that two companies may be affiliated. It means like they are like brothers or sisters. So he has a family relationship to universal space and time. He's not just confined to earth and humanity. And in fact, when he comes here, Aurobindo says that he is paying God's debt to earth and man. This is an interesting idea which comes in several places in the poem, that God owes us a debt because he has put us in this mess. Or at least he has invited us to take up this adventure of unconsciousness and evolution. And so he owes it to us to help us on the way. So he sends his sons or his messengers to pay that debt that God owes to humanity, to the earth. So Aswapati is one of those. He's a son, a child of the Supreme, and that's his divine right as a king. He, by becoming here and accepting to be a human being, he's consented, he's agreed. All of us have agreed, actually. None of us would be here unless we had agreed. The Lord couldn't send us unless we said yes. So we've all consented to mortal ignorance. But for most of us, when we do that and when we are born as human beings, we forget all that we knew, that our soul knew originally. But he has kept the memory. Aswapati, his knowledge shared the light ineffable, that inexpressible light of consciousness and power, which is beyond this manifestation in the transcendent levels. Sarojini.
The strength of the original's permanence, eternal,
Entangled.
entangled in the moment and its flow. He kept the vision of the past behind. A power was in him from the unknowable.
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 Yes. So he is a strength, a power of the original permanence, of that which hasn't been born, which cannot die, which always exists, is permanent. But he's come here into our human world, and here he's like a fish that's caught in a net, entangled in the moment and its flow. Although his origin is eternal and divine, here he has to pass through the process and the circumstances and the challenges of time. But he still kept the vision of the vasts behind. He has not forgotten where he came from, what is his origin. There, helping him and supporting him is a power. A power was in him from the unknowable, the supreme divine that is beyond our powers of knowing. Alice.
An archivist of the symbols of the beyond, a treasurer of human dreams. He wore the stamp of mighty memories and shed the grandiose ray on human life.
An archivist. You know what is an archivist? It's somebody who keeps archives. They collect things and keep them so that they don't get lost. So he is a person who holds and looks after the symbols of the beyond. Everything we see, actually, is a symbol of the truths that we don't see, that are beyond the reach of our sight. But those people who know the meanings, who can see and understand the meanings behind all these ordinary appearances, those are special people. So he is a being like that he can collect and keep and hold and share, perhaps, the meanings of all these symbols that are around us in the world. He's a treasurer. He's looking after a treasure, after a great wealth of superhuman dreams. We have our ordinary human dreams, and they are often indications of our future destiny. But what he's remembering is superhuman dreams, the dreams of the immortals for the earth, what they are dreaming of for us. And he's remembering, and that memory of his leaves a stamp, a mark, a distinctive mark on him. And those mighty memories, they influence his attitude and his behavior, his words. So those mighty memories that he's bringing from the other realms, they cast a light, a grandiose ray, a ray of strong, noble light on human life. Ganga Lakshmi.
Is they were along the road to the Supreme. The skyward being nourishing his roots. The substance from what spiritual found climbed to white ray to meet an unseen soul. His soul leaned as eternity elevate. His mind was like a fire, ascending even
Heaven.
heaven. His will uttered in the trails of life.
So his human days, through his human days, he's growing closer and closer to the Supreme Divine. His being is a being that is growing towards the sky, towards the higher levels of consciousness. And it's drawing its food like a great tree. The trees grow up towards the sky, but they are also drawing nourishment from their roots deep underground. No? So he says, this skyward being that is King Aswapati is nourishing its roots on sustenance, on food, on nourishment from occult spiritual founts, hidden sources of spiritual light and power. And that skyward being is climbing up through white rays to meet an unseen sun. All plants, or almost all plants, grow towards the sun. No? They're attracted, they grow to meet the sun. This sun that he is growing towards can't be seen by ordinary eyes, but his being knows that high sun is there. The sun is the symbol of the divine origin. The sun for us, in fact, it's a fact, that all energy, all life, everything that is living and growing here on earth is nourished by the sun. And our sun is spreading its light and energy and power through the whole solar system. So in a similar way, the divine that is sustaining this whole manifestation, we can think of it as a sun, a wonderful golden, glowing light. So his being is growing up to meet that supreme light, that unseen sun. And here on earth, in his human existence, his soul lives here as eternity's delegate. A delegate is somebody who is sent to represent somebody or something, to speak for somebody. So that is his soul. His soul has been sent here from eternity, and it's spreading that knowledge and light. His mind is like a fire, a powerful fire full of aspiration and burning upward energy. That fire is assailing, attacking heaven. It wants to conquer heaven. And his will is a hunter in the trails of light. A hunter is always trying to track something down. No? He will follow the traces of the animal. He will be looking for it. So what Aswapati's will is always looking for is the true and the right, the noble, the great. Following the trails of light to find his goal. You'll read, please.
An ocean impulse lifted every breath. Each action left footprints of a path. Each moment was a beat of ocean wings, the little plot of our mortality. Touched by this tenant from the heights became a playground of the living infinite.
Yes. So with every breath that he draws, there's an ocean impulse. The ocean is so vast, seems to have no limits. There's something very, very powerful and vast there in his every breath. And all his actions seem to leave the marks, the footprints of a god, everything that he does. Each moment of his life was a beat of puissant wings, like a powerful bird flying very high. So this little plot of our mortality, this little space where we all live in the grip of ignorance and death, when it's touched by this tenant from the heights, he comes to earth as a tenant. Earth is not his home. It's a place that he comes to stay temporarily. But just the fact that he is staying here, it makes this little plot, this place where we human beings live, a playground for the living infinite. Kamala, would you read the next sentence, please?
This bodily appearance is not all. The form disease, the person is a mark. He deep in our celestial forest and love. Is fragile, ship by waves through the sea of waves, and incontinent of the imperishable.
Let's pause there. So Aurobindo now is not telling us about King Aswapati. He's telling us about we human beings in general. This bodily appearance is not all. This form that we are wearing is deceptive, it's misleading. It doesn't show who and what we really are. This person that we identify with and that other people identify us with. It's only a mask, a kind of mask like the ancient classical actors used to wear. They would wear a special mask, and then you know, oh, this is the hero and this is the villain. No? It is like that. In fact, the word person in English comes from the word persona. It was the name for those masks. It showed which character the actor was playing. So our personalities are like that too. But hid deep in man, celestial powers can dwell. We're carrying heavenly beings within us, heavenly powers living hidden by our masks and our appearances. These human bodies, Sri Aurobindo often refers to them as a house, but here he refers to them as a ship. It's the ship in which we are being carried through the years. We're sailing through the years now. So this fragile ship, our body, is carrying, conveying, transporting through the sea of years, the sea of our life. What it's carrying is an incognito of the imperishable. When very well-known people travel, they will often wear dark sunglasses and a big hat or a wig, and they will not give their real name. They'll give a false name so that people don't recognize them. Incognito, it means unknown. Incognito, unknown. So it's like that, disguised, hidden, an incognito of the imperishable, the one who cannot die, is being carried on this fragile ship of a human body through time. Suresh.
The street that is flame of God abides.
A flame of God.
The flame of God.
Yeah.
Abides.
Abides.
A fiery portion of the wonderful artist of his own beauty and delight. Immortal in our mortal poverty.
So abides means lives. Living in us is a spirit that is a flame, just one flame of that great sun of the divine, a flame of God. That flame that is in us is a fiery portion, a little bit of the wonderful, of that great, wonderful being who is our origin. And that fiery portion that is in us is an artist. He creates his own beauty and his own delight. He lives in us, in our mortal poverty. Poverty is when you don't have enough to live on, really. No? Or you live in a very, very poor way. But, and mortal means that you're subject to death. We are all subject to death. So far. But that fiery portion of the wonderful who is within us is not subject to death. He is immortal. He is living within us. So I'll stop there for today. If anybody has any questions, we can
Yes, Shraddhavan, in the beginning, after one substance from a pure spiritual life,
Yes.
to white way to meet an unseen sun. White way, why should we go?
Well, white has two meanings. One is that it's pure, but also we know the great scientist Newton has shown us that the white light contains all the colors of the rainbow. So it is also a symbol of integrality, of wholeness and completeness.
I hope so, but I don't know. Thank you.
So those who like, we can read these 50 lines together. A world's desire compelled her mortal birth. One in the front of the immemorial quest, protagonist of the mysterious play in which the unknown pursues himself through forms and limits his eternity by the hours, and the blind void struggles to live and see. A thinker and toiler in the ideal's air, brought down to earth's dumb need her radiant power. His was a spirit that stooped from larger spheres into our province of ephemeral sight, a colonist from immortality, a pointing beam on earth's uncertain roads. His birth held up a symbol and a sign. His human self, like a translucent cloak, covered the all-wise who leads the unseeing world. Affiliated to cosmic space and time, and paying here God's debt to earth and man, a greater sonship was his divine right. Although consenting to mortal ignorance, his knowledge shared the light ineffable, a strength of the original permanence, entangled in the moment and its flow. He kept the vision of the vasts behind. A power was in him from the unknowable. An archivist of the symbols of the beyond, a treasurer of superhuman dreams. He bore the stamp of mighty memories and shed their grandiose ray on human life. His days were a long growth to the supreme, a skyward being nourishing its roots on sustenance from occult spiritual founts, climbed through white rays to meet an unseen sun. His soul lived as eternity's delegate. His mind was like a fire assailing heaven, his will a hunter in the trails of light. An ocean impulse lifted every breath. Each action left the footprints of a god. Each moment was a beat of puissant wings. The little plot of our mortality, touched by this tenant from the heights, became a playground of the living infinite. This bodily appearance is not all. The form deceives, the person is a mask. Hid deep in man, celestial powers can dwell. His fragile ship conveys through the sea of years an incognito of the imperishable. A spirit that is a flame of God abides, a fiery portion of the wonderful, artist of his own beauty and delight, immortal in our mortal poverty.